The minutes changes have been made based on our emails today. That I think would be on page 7 of the minutes from May 26th. Okay, I will call this meeting to order on Monday, June 23rd, 2025 at 6:30 p.m., a meeting of the Town Planning Advisory Committee. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We also acknowledge that people of African descent have been in Nova Scotia for over 400 years. We honor and offer gratitude to those ancestors of Mi'kmaq and African descent who came before us to this land. Our agenda is before the committee, and I would like a motion to approve it unless there are any suggested changes to be made. Moved by Councillor McGrath and seconded by Councillor Graham. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any contrary minded? No. Okay, motion carried. Thank you. We have our minutes from our last meeting of May 26th, which have been provided, but I think some changes had been made based on conversations today. So I can give the committee another couple of minutes to review those, and when someone is ready to make a motion to approve them or note any changes required, that would be great. Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Okay, Ms. Delorier. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Any contrary minded? Any abstentions? Nope, motion carried. Thank you. So just for anybody who is here in the gallery and didn't receive notice either by way of the town's Facebook page or other methods of communication, the item which was to be on the agenda being Lennox Developments Limited of Roby, 373 Roby, that item has been removed from the agenda at the request of the developer. So we will not be discussing that this evening. And notifications will go out in the normal course to let people know when that will be back on the agenda. So just in case anybody is tuning in for that item. All right, and moving on to the next thing on our agenda, which is 155 Arthur Street. This is an application for a development agreement at step 1 of the process, and I believe that is under Mr. McPherson, who's not here, so Mr. Fox will be speaking to this application.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yes, bear with me as I try and get through Jacob's presentation here. So this is for 155 Arthur Street. The subject property is approximately 650 square meters in area, or around 7,020 square feet, or 0.16 acres. Property has 19.2 meters of frontage on Arthur Street, and there's an existing building on the property which has a footprint of around 1,291 square feet, and it's a 2-story building as well. The properties are situated on the edge of the Truro downtown core. The surrounding neighborhood includes a mixture of residential, institutional, and commercial uses, including the Truro Veterinary Hospital, which this proposal would be in conjunction with. Lands are within the, as shown on the screen, within the urban corridor policy area, and they are zoned urban corridor UC. The 155, if you could just go back. 155 Arthur Street is zoned and designated as urban corridor in the town's policy area and the zoning map as shown on the maps on this slide. So just what will be important later on to note is that it is on the boundary of the downtown core zone and designation. But it is zoned urban corridor, but it's on the periphery, and that'll come up in a few moments on later slides. So this is just a picture showing the subject property from Arthur Street. The building was previously used as a boutique store and an optometrist clinic. This is the backside of the property facing south, looking at the gravel parking lot at the rear of the building. So the proposed change of use is to an animal and pet service. To permit an animal and pet services use at 155 Arthur Street, the proposal is to use the parking area and the building in support of the Truro Veterinary Hospital. The applicant intends to use the existing building for cat care, including general examinations, preventative care, etc. It would not host animals overnight or host surgical procedures. Tidal Veterinary Services, Inc. has requested to turn the existing building into a cat-only veterinary care clinic as a means of expanding its existing operations on the site. The clinic would fall under animal and pet services land use, which permits the retailing of pet supplies and the provision of animal services. The applicant does not, again, intend to house animals overnight or host any kind of surgical procedures in the building. So the next one there, this slide, enabling policy. This is the policy that allows council to consider this application by a development agreement, and this is where the fact that it's peripheral or on the periphery of the downtown core zone becomes important. Because policy IM11 actually, what happens here is that where the property abuts the urban growth, urban corridor, downtown core, or regional service policy area on the policy map, council is able to consider by development agreement proposals that would be permitted in the abutting zone policy area. So in this case, if it's in the downtown core, if it's in the urban corridor policy area and it happens to abut a downtown core zone, policy IM11 allows council to consider proposals that would be considered in the downtown core by development agreement. So in this case, animal and pet services wouldn't actually be permitted in the urban corridor policy area or zone. However, they are permitted in the downtown core zone and policy area, so therefore it's allowed through this policy, but it does have to go through a development agreement. Looking for, because it's a pretty straightforward application process being considered today, no change to the structures being proposed other than just a change of use. Not a significant change really from the previous use of the property as a retail. So we're looking for this to be processed using the standard process as opposed to the longer expanded process we typically use. So just the 4-step process is being proposed, and the application is at the first step where this committee has the opportunity to provide their initial comments, and staff are again recommending that this process be used, the shorter process, given that the intensity of the proposed use is really quite consistent with what's been used on the site previously as a retail use. In terms of public participation, we will post a notice sign on the property in the coming weeks. We'll also post information on the town's website under active development applications, and we'll do a typical mail out to property owners within 150 meters. And then in terms of next steps, the second planning advisory committee meeting, including a staff report, as well as a full policy review weighing the proposal against the town's policies, will be presented at the next planning advisory committee meeting, and then there will be a public hearing including a final staff report and full policy review, along with any public engagement results. And at that time, council would make a decision. And that concludes my presentation, respectfully submitted.
Thank you, Senior Planner Fox. Do you mind just explaining for the benefit of the committee that the policy, I think it was like policy 11, ICM11, IM11. So just with respect to what, I expect that the zoning or the policy which this property is subject to won't change.
No.
Meaning if this property was sold in the future, it would continue to be urban corridor. Can you just walk us through
Sure.
how that all works?
This policy is really intended to make sure that when we have zoning boundaries on our town zoning map, that they're not necessarily hard and fast boundaries, that there's some flexibility given that there may be a use that seems appropriate right next door to an existing use, such as in this case. This property is on the edge of the downtown core and could easily be considered to be consistent with every other use to the east on Arthur Street. So it's a good idea to have a policy that allows this sort of flexibility. What this policy does, though, is it doesn't change the zone. All it does is allow council to consider the use that it would be permitted in the downtown core zone, in the urban corridor zone, through the development agreement process. And it does mean that depending on how the agreement is written, that the uses that would be permitted on this property may not be the full range of uses that would be permitted in the downtown core zone. It may just be limited to so veterinary services or animal, forget the exact terminology used, animal and pet services, I believe. So that would be the use that it may be limited to, and any other use that would be normally permitted in the urban corridor zone. But the zone itself would not change.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful for us to consider. I think when we, if an agreement is entered into. Any members of the committee wish to speak? I think Deputy Mayor Thomas is in the queue first.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Fox, for your presentation. When we say for cats, will the agreement be written up specifically for cats and no other pets, birds, etc.? Not that cats and birds
I think
are a good thing to put together.
We would typically just list the use, the animal, animal and pet services would be the listed use. So that would include any other animals as well.
I see, because because next door they obviously they've delineated the fact that they're going to use this building to service outpatient cats, because they have all the other services for dogs, et cetera, on the building to the east of it. The same owner, right? The proprietor.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just interested in how it's going to be written up. That's all. Okay. And the thing is, I'm sort of interested in signage, so I don't know if you can comment on that or in the future. It's in urban corridor. It's next to residential properties, et cetera. Just wondering the rules on signage for this. I know it's going to be a development agreement, so, we have rules for signing, but will those be written in the development agreement that they have to? Because the signage that they have now is great, but I don't want to see one of these neon sign, not neon, but you know what I mean.
Signage would be, unless the committee considers it appropriate to do otherwise, we would just make it subject to the urban corridor zone standard requirements.
Okay.
It may also suggest that, I would personally suggest, I'm not sure how it would work out in the end. It's something we can have for the next meeting. But if you look at the photo that's on the screen there, that size signage would be appropriate. So
Yeah.
that could be that or...
It works really well now.
Yeah, so that or something that would be permitted in the urban corridor zone.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
And I should just note, I think some of the members of Title Veterinarian are here. So if any of you wish to come down and to speak at the microphone, you're welcome to, if you want to add anything, or if any committee member has a question specifically for you. Okay, Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Fox, you specifically had called out that there will not be any overnight hosting of animals nor any surgical procedures performed on site. I'm just curious why these are called out specifically. Is that something that would not be permitted in the downtown core neighborhood? Or is it just because there's a possible concern over those services being hosted in this area?
I'm afraid you've exceeded my knowledge on this file with that question. So I can have that answer for you at the next meeting, but they may be prepared to answer.
I think there's some boarding, right? Like boarding would be, would be a specific. I can do that. You should be good now.
You are live.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I think initially we were a bit concerned that if we were keeping animals overnight, boarding or providing full services, there might be more of an issue with the residents around being concerned, especially if there were dogs, say, for example, it's noise concerns and things like that. So the other part of it is when we went through the licensing process for our association, the Vet Association, there's a specific difference between a clinic and a hospital. And that is really what delineates the difference. A hospital provides surgical procedures, whereas a clinic doesn't. And so it was, some of the language that's there, I think, really came from that line of separation in the beginning through our own association. I'm not sure if it really affects this going forward from the perspective of being zoned urban corridor versus downtown core. But we just wanted to make sure that people knew that there's not going to be anything there overnight, nothing loud that might disturb the peace in the area surrounding.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you for that. And if we could go back to the zoning or policy map, or that's exactly right there. So just, Mr. Fox, and I think I already know the answer, but just for full clarity, the policy, implementation policy IM 11 says that we can use the abutting downtown core policy and uses in this subject property, which is zoned urban corridor. But once this urban corridor, it's not being rezoned, that none of those premises on Pleasant Street that are abutting the subject property, they would not also get that benefit of getting the downtown corridor uses extended to them as well, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Graham?
I'm just curious about the types of services you will be offering.
So as a clinic, we're seeing appointments. So it'll be mostly preventive care, so vaccinations, senior wellness appointments, and some medical appointments for non-urgent cases, so ear infections, skin infections, mobility concerns in older cats. Anything that is more sick or requires sedation, surgery will go to the main hospital.
I also just wanted to compliment the three of you on the endeavor. I know that there's a lot of opportunities in the veterinarian world these days to sell to the big conglomerates, and it's nice to see three women keeping it local. So thanks.
That's appreciated. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Thomas?
Just curiosity, why are you separating out the cats from other species?
Used to, unfortunately, a few weeks ago.
Yeah, so some cats they're creatures of habit. They are nervous to leave their house if they're house cats. So bringing them into a really busy, bustling hospital with dogs that are noisy and smell like dogs is stressful. So there's been a bit of a movement to having 100% cat-only clinics in some
Okay.
areas, just so that it's a bit more specialized and that it's quieter, and you can have a lower stress visit for the cat, which people who have cats that are really stressed out going to the vet are also really stressed to bring them. And so it decreases the amount of times they'll take them to see the vet because they don't like to stress them out with that sort of that experience.
Yeah, thank you for your answer.
Anything from you? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming. I think we've had some good discussion, and this will then now move forward to the next step, which will be at our next meeting. August 25th. Okay. Thank you. So you'll probably hear from Mr. McPherson in the meantime, before that next meeting. All right, thank you. So now we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is Tier 2 Properties Limited, recognizing Mr. Wallace there, which is a Step 1 application in the on Roby Street in the mall parking lot, 245 Roby Street, being a new building in that corner of that parking lot. And that is Ms. Connolly's application or project, so I will let Planner Connolly take it from here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Or as you mentioned, there is a current development agreement on the site. This would actually be an amendment to that agreement, which has been amended multiple times prior to this. So this is the fourth, I believe, in my recent history. Subject site, as mentioned, is the Truro Mall. It's approximately 10 hectares in area, or over 25 acres. The area specifically impacted by this redevelopment is about 1,000 square meters, which is just over a quarter of an acre. And the total size of the lands for like the entire property itself have about 343 meters of frontage on Roby Street. This is located in an area which I'm sure you're all familiar with, but it's a very commercial area. The area uses in the immediate area include the automobile dealerships, a cemetery, various fast food style restaurants, and retail and commercial uses. Subject site, the lands are within the regional service policy area. So you see that general residential neighborhood, and those low density residential uses extend to the east of the site. And then the more intense commercial uses kind of start with the mall and run to the west. Lands are also zoned regional service, RS zone. The entire site, which you can kind of see, it has a different purple tone there because it has that 1 to 20 flood overlay on top of it, as well as portions of the 1 to 100 floodway fringe. So that's the darker purple in the bottom. I'm just moving my mouse over that area so you get a sense of where that is. This is a screen grab of where the proposed approximate location of that new pad site will be in the existing parking lot of the mall site. As mentioned, is just over 1,000 square meters in area to be impacted. This is also at the first step of the standard application process. It's not anticipated to be a hugely contentious application, as it is an amendment of an existing development agreement for more commercial uses that currently exist on the site. So here's a rendering. This is a concept design that shows a similar building in a different lot, in a different context, but you get the idea that it's going to be a 600 square foot pad site that will house a multiple bay automotive oil change facility. The exact brand is to be determined. Drive in, drive out style for your oil changing needs. So just as a site plan, you can see an aerial kind of view of where the proposed area of redevelopment will be, and it's in that southeast corner where the mouse is moving. So 66 parking spaces will be impacted on the site. 22 will be reinstated surrounding that new building. However, it will result in a total loss of 44 spaces overall. Here we get another 2 shots of what that would look like from the other side of the potential or prospective building. So as the policy analysis and review, the existing development agreement that was signed in 1988, it will be amended again. As part of that agreement, it allows further amendment as per section 4D of that document. This will follow the standard public participation program, which a development application notice sign will be posted on the property. Information will be continuously posted on the town's website under active development applications, and a mail out will also be sent to all property owners within 150 meters of this site. So just like the previous application, this will proceed to a second PAC meeting expected August 25th. And a recommendation from PAC is expected at that time. As again, staff are recommending that the standard process be followed for this, which would then follow with a public hearing. Just to go back, just to briefly talk about that parking again, we did some calculations, and I just want to bring it up because Deputy Mayor Thomas kind of made the point when he was walking by, just that it will be a topic of conversation. This one has been amended, and it has reduced the overall parking. The existing development agreement currently requires 5.5 parking spaces be provided per 1,000 square feet of leasable area. So leasable area within the mall includes everything except publicly accessible areas or areas that would benefit everybody. So maintenance rooms, corridors, hallways, bathrooms, those kind of things are not leasable area, and they are excluded from the parking calculation. However, it's still a high ratio. So we did some calculations. There's some numbers included in the report, which I'm sure you've seen. I also had our planning summer student kind of run some numbers with the updated square footage that he could find, because there was some other data that we found online. And when we also did a comparison between what the development agreement requires versus what the town's land use bylaw would require if each individual use were held up against the parking requirement. So in looking at that, right now with the numbers that we have, we figured that there would be 1,303 spaces required as per the town's land use bylaw parking requirement, where the development agreement would actually require 1,452. Currently on site, there are 1,000, I don't have that number right here, 1,148, I want to say, parking spaces on the site. So there is a little bit of a discrepancy between what the development agreement requires, what the applicant is asking for. I think it's great that everybody here has some context with the site and has seen it through many different parts of the year under different circumstances, I guess, with things going on in the building. We also have the benefit of the applicant to be here to speak to their experience with the site and the usability. This, from my experience, is a fairly unused portion of the site, but as mentioned, it still will result in a loss of parking spaces to be considered. So that concludes the presentation, and any comments are appreciated.
Thank you, Planner Connolly. Excuse me, Mr. Wallace, you're welcome to come down to the microphone if you like. Councillor Graham.
Ms. Connolly, I'm just wondering, why is this before us? What it makes it?
That's a great question. The development agreement restricts a lot of different things to do with the site. One of the things is it's clear about the number of pad sites. This will be the 4th pad site. There were only 3 permitted with the original development agreement, so this will allow an additional pad site in addition to that parking requirement that's in the development agreement. So they'll be amending the 2 things, the construction of that 4th site on the parking lot, as well as a reduction in the parking.
And
And
that
so-
can't happen as of right?
No.
No, okay. All right. I always thought an oil change business would be good there. So anyway, it's going to be great that we're not going to have any fights.
Deputy Mayor Thomas?
Just wondering about the style of this service. Is it pit style, or is it, because a lot of these ones you drive in and they're a pit, and this is 1 in 20 flooding. So I just was wondering if you can comment on that. Some thought must have gone into that.
We don't have, at this time, we don't have a tenant lined
Okay.
up. We have multiple tenants that want to go there
Sure.
with different styles of operation. So in dealing with Ms. Conley, like, the biggest concern was being able to be away from the floodplain proofing. So, and I believe, Carla, that we conform to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even if it is a pit style, a lot of these oil change places, you drive in and there's the employee that does the oil change is in a pit underneath the car, so you kind of drive over the pit. And I'm just wondering, with flooding, et cetera, is that, and yeah.
Yeah, it's not impossible. That's for sure. Nothing's impossible if you have enough time and money and imagination, I guess. So the floodproofing requirements would apply to the building. So essentially what may happen, and as the applicant, Mr. Wallace, just asked or indicated, they have been trying to pull the building to the 1 to 100 versus the 1 to 20 floodway fringe. And that, like, the floodproofing will be required to bring material in, or however their engineer suggests that. But typically what that is materials brought in, the site is built up, there are no openings below
Right.
9 centimeters above that noted level.
Yeah, so it's like
So
an underground parkade, that's being protected as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, thank you.
Councillor McGrath?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here, Mr. Wallace. Following up a little bit on Deputy Mayor's questions about if this is a pit style and the possible flood risk in this area, I'm a little concerned about the possible contamination. So this is an oil change business. Oil is likely going to be spilled. If there is some sort of flooding, you need a way to get that water out, but we also want to make sure that we're not contaminating the soil. So if that's oily water, or if there are drains that are going to be there to allow water to run out in case of flooding, would that also allow oils and other greases and things to contaminate the soil? So that's a concern, because I'm thinking, this is planning advisory, so we're thinking of the future, and the federal government has mandated that there will be no new sales of internal combustion engines as of 2035, is I believe their current target, the last I saw. I'm sure ICE vehicles will continue to exist long beyond that, but at some point, I would assume your tenants are going to be looking to either retool or shut down when their business eventually dries up. And I'm just curious about what's going to be there in the future, and hopefully that it's not going to be something that's going to end up before property standards. But the contamination, are you able to speak to that? And if not, would you be able to speak to that maybe after discussing with the prospective tenants?
Yeah, I think at maybe the next PAC, we can talk more about that.
Okay.
I'm sure, though, from an environmental standpoint, everything would conform with this new build.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my primary concern, and just what Ms. Connolly brought up, parking. I mean, I visit the mall sometimes. I've never seen the parking lot full. Have you? Like, I assume if you're willing to lose 44 spaces total, that I don't think that you have a concern that you're going to lose a lot of business from that loss of parking.
When we purchased the mall, I believe 2 or 3 years ago, it was about 50% occupied. It's now close to 95%. And here we are in front of you asking for a new pad as well. So the ratio of 5.5 spaces per 1,000 leasable square footage is extremely high for a shopping center. In comparison, I think I mentioned to you guys before, when I was in here for the Grant Thornton building, like in Bridgewater, it's 3 spaces per 1,000. New Glasgow's 3.5 spaces per 1,000. Even having worked at Crombie, and I know Jason did as well at one time, shopping, like grocery stores, usually their internal ratio is about 5 per 1,000 square feet. So having 5.5 is really high.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you have no concerns, obviously, with
No.
losing the parking?
No.
Wonderful. And that's the thing, you bring up grocery. Some of the lots I've seen I've never seen them full except during the Christmas parade.
Right.
That's fun. So, yeah, if we could get just some information on environmental mitigation for future, that would satisfy me. Thank you.
I think the only thing I'll bring up to the committee is there have been some things raised that we would like some more information on. Are members of the committee comfortable moving forward with the standard process, or do any members wish to go through the more expanded process, which would include an additional step with this committee?
Just wanted to comment on that. So we do still come back with a full report and recommendation, so we will still have an opportunity to present the requested information to the committee, and committee can consider that before making their final recommendation, even with the shorter process. So I just want to make sure that's clear. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to raise it. It doesn't sound like we need that. So, all right. Thank you, Mr. Wallace. We will. Oh, sorry. Deputy Mayor Thomas and Councillor McGrath also want to speak again. Just 1 second.
Just briefly on the standard versus expanded. If we get to the step 2, where we get our full staff report, but if we don't have answers to our questions, are we able to defer that into what would eventually sort of, expanded into the expanded, I guess?
Yes, you can at any time, and the process is just a suggested kind of process for our development applications. At any time the committee wants to defer, request for additional information, that is always an option for them.
Perfect, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Thomas?
This has to do with the MPS, and the question is for Ms. Connolly, I guess, in regards to the parking lot and beautification, now, and I can't remember, and I didn't have time to look it up, whether it's just residential parking, where, you have so many spaces, and then you have to have, a tree or an island or something to break it up. So it's not just an expanse, because I remember in the 1970s, it was just like, when this was probably built, it was like, okay, let's pave it from one end to the other and not put a bush or a piece of grass anywhere in between. And I think we've evolved to understand that there's a higher quality of life for everybody if we add some beauty to our surroundings and not just have a huge ocean of pavement. So I just don't know how this mixes in with commercial and you know, this situation, whether it's grandfathered in. I'd just like some discussion on that, you know, and how the new MPS applies, or does it apply? You know, so if you could just have some brief discussion about that.
Yeah, you're right. The town's land use bylaw does talk about requirements for landscaping and breakup. I forget what they're called right now, but they're little just landscaped islands, yeah, at the end of the parking rows, and that does apply to new construction. And you're right, this was done previous to the town's most recent land use bylaws. There is a landscaping plan that is attached to the original development agreement. It speaks mostly to the extents of the site, so along Marshland Drive and along Roby Street, that there are requirements for tree planting and like a hedge be planted, which is there for the most part when you drive along and you look at it, but there is no requirement within the parking lot itself. However, the applicant is here, and if you would like to make some suggestions or recommendation to him, now would be the absolute perfect time.
Well, I don't want to draw from your business, you know, it's an important business, and we appreciate, the fact that it was 50% full and now it's 90% full. So that's just excellent. You know, a dead mall, right, is not a good thing for a town.
Yep.
So this is really good news, So, but the thing is too, is that, we have an excellent urban forest technician, and he could make some really good comments in regards to trees, but it also has to work because, you have to be able to see the stores to know that it exists, right? You can't hide it behind a forest of trees. So, but there's a compromise there somehow, right? Between beautification, some greenery, so there's a way of doing this so that's a win-win, I believe. And I haven't seen a lot of change yet, maybe I just haven't seen it, but, new trees planted, maybe, along the perimeter or whatever, but I'd like to see something like that, and since you're here, I thought I'd bring it up. Yeah.
The landscaped islands within a parking lot are a nightmare.
Okay, for clearing snow,
Yes.
yada, 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 yeah.
You can go around certain strip plazas in Halifax and you'll see the parking lot's just all dinged up, and it's not nice at all. I'm sure after talking with my team, I'm sure we can come up with a solution that appeases you.
I wonder, yeah, just not me, but we have I'm telling you, we have a very good urban forest
Yep.
technician that works for the town. He specializes in this. He's got experience across Canada, and I think you'd be wise to talk to him in regards to what species you could grow, what would work in that situation,
Yep. Sure.
to bring some more greenery, right? Yeah. So I don't know if that's something that we want as a committee to request as part of it or not.
Do either of the planners have an opinion on whether that is something that can be encompassed in this application?
I mean, we could certainly, with the support of the applicant as well, to be involved in the process, send the site plan to our urban forester, the town's urban forester, to get his feedback. We would want to know, certainly, there's a couple different things with that. So what kind of, are you expecting in your head, what kind of landscaping? And would it be in the interior of the parking lot? Would it
No,
be around
I
the
fully
site?
understand your concern about the interior, but I think there is some room for more trees in the exterior. But then I'm not a mall expert, and I don't know what's going to decrease,
Yeah.
visits because of the fact that you can't see it,
Yeah.
These people put a lot of money into their signs, et cetera, and then you hide it behind a tree. So I don't understand, where you want to be with this, but I think there's room for some improvement when it comes to greenery. And I'm not proposing that it be written into the agreement. I think it's just something that I'm suggesting. And I think that, since you're at the planning department, and you're working with the town, I'm just asking that
Yeah.
you consider that.
I can say that a lot of the larger tenants have, no builds, they have vista clauses in their agreements.
Right.
This is actually the only area where we can put in a smaller pad because because of no builds from our tenants, not because of the town's
Understood, yeah,
development.
because they won't be able to see this will actually block their storefront.
Yeah,
Or their sign.
exactly. So, you know, on the periphery, shrubbery, smaller trees would be
Okay.
okay, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Along
Mr.
Marshland
Wallace,
Drive,
are you-
maybe there's an opportunity there, you know, perhaps. But I'll just leave that with you,
Yep.
you know? I'm not trying to cripple your business with,
No.
you know, with landscaping,
Yep.
right? But at the same time, you must admit that, you know, an ocean of pavement is not the most attractive thing that we do,
Yep,
you know? Yeah, thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Wallace, are you agreeable to Ms. Connolly sending the site plan off to the urban forester to have a look
Sure.
at it?
He can contact me, Carolyn, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. Well, if there is nothing else to discuss on this, we'll wait until the next meeting to bring those few things forward, which were mainly to do with the floodplain / contamination issue and the possibility of some more trees or shrubs. All right, well, I think that's all that we have on the agenda. So as Angela noted, our next meeting is August 25th. And with that, if somebody would like to move to adjourn, please. Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Meeting adjourned.